So we're gonna jump back now to, we've got Farmer David Neville with us, and let me see if I can get his, if I can get back to the pictures I had of him. David,
Yes, ma'am.
you can take it away while I try to get these pictures back up here for you.
Thanks, thanks, guys, for having us on today. Just a couple of quick notes. I'll leave my video off. I ain't too pretty anyway, and I have a not too good a cell service right here. I'm on my mobile, so I'll just talk if y'all don't mind. So it was interesting to me when Lori asked me to do this, and then I saw her title. How does the livestock guy get involved in uh, produce? I think was the way she uh, said it. And really, it's pretty simple, right? I'm always out looking for opportunities. I come from a sort of a more conventional, when I was growing up, tobacco, dairy kind of deal on the farm. But as most of us here know, that just is not happening nowadays. So you got to, if you want to farm, you got to be adaptable and look for opportunities. And so I created some value added products off the farm, some hot dogs for school lunch programs. And then also, I used to wear a white shirt and a tie and all that, and worked in corporate America and worked with schools. And so I had the advantage of understanding how schools operate. So it really didn't kind of make me too nervous, knowing that I would have to operate off of a purchase order, that the invoice was very important, and a formal invoice, and that the board was going to have to approve the invoice to get a check, right? And you might wait a couple of weeks or 3 weeks. So having had that experience on with hot dogs, my food service directors would almost every time say, "Well, you do this Kentucky Proud thing. We need this, and we need this, and we need this." So I looked at other opportunities. Excuse me. And one of those was just about every school we talked to were having major challenges with fresh produce, and you could chalk it up to a lot of different things, supply chain issues. Although a lot of people said the supply chain issues were related to COVID, we really discovered that even prior to COVID, there were supply chain issues, and COVID just exacerbated those. And then droughts in California, labor shortages in Florida, and where before a lot of schools, uh, so they had access to convenient products, and I understand that deal, uh, but they didn't. A lot of them just didn't consider small farmers, local farmers, and that sort of thing. Well, when all this stuff hit, they kind of started looking around and said, okay, where can we find fresh produce, right? And so while I still do my livestock stuff, I thought an opportunity there is, as most of us know, schools will feed more people in a county than any other entity, right? And so there's large opportunities there, I thought, but we have to get at them, and we have to do what from a farmer's perspective sometimes is a little different. We have to listen to our customer and provide what our customer wants. So during a period of time when I was doing the hot dog stuff, I would ask folks. This is even prior to me getting involved in produce. What do you need? What are you missing? What if a farmer could provide it, what could they provide? And it came down to fairly simple. So there's lots and lots of different products, but it came down for me anyway, fairly simply to dark leafy greens. As Anna over Henry County said, don't bring me no iceberg lettuce. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, what are you going to grow? And we were putting up a greenhouse and doing some other things. I said, whatever you want me to grow, right? And so we even had a meeting this morning with Henry County Schools food service team and also Trimble County food service team, and got some really good insight in terms of what schools want. And a lot of folks want to paint school food service with I call it the cookie cutter brush, right? But they're so different. We learned that in working with in the IT world, that even though a school's have to follow certain regulations. There are certainly, different ways of doing things. So we approach it from the sense that how can we work, we collectively, not just me, but other small farmers, and I help other small farmers market their products as well sometimes. How can we collectively meet the needs of the schools, and what are those needs, right? And how do we get about it? How do we do logistics and all that sort of thing? So with all that kind of context behind, I said, we really need to do some things to help other farmers understand they can work with schools. I talked to a lot of farmers that, especially the old guys, look like me, said the school's just too hard to work with. Well, I knew that wasn't true, but that was their basis, the farmers' basis to look, their perception, I'll call it. And then they'll keep my money. Well, on my hot dogs, I get my money 2 or 3 weeks, and it's check is in the mail, right? And there are certain other myths surrounding the whole farm to school stuff, but on both sides, on both the farmer side and the school side. So I said, well, let's get at this. How do we get at this? So working with Kentucky State University, working with a sponsor out of Wolfe County, a fellow that grew up in Wolfe County and started the Family Farm Foundation that wanted to do some things to get more small farmers engaged, especially in Eastern Kentucky. And some of my buddies in the food service world that I'd already built those relationships with. And so, long story short, we went to an auction. We bought a former tobacco greenhouse, put it up. I had no experience putting up a greenhouse work, and so me and one other guy put it up. And so the three sort of prongs or three branches of what we're trying to do is research. So working with Kentucky State University and others on hydroponics, right? Uh, for profit, as I always say, if I ain't making no money, I might well be fishing, right? So it's got to be profitable, not only for me, but for other farmers that might take a look at what we're doing. And that third thing is just that site demonstration. So a farmer walks up, he sees a former tobacco greenhouse. Oh, I'm familiar with that. I mean, he sees float beds growing lettuce, and while it's not tobacco plants, it'll look very familiar to him in what we're doing uh, as to what he did with his tobacco plants in past years, right? And so then always looking for opportunities. I had somebody tag me on Facebook one day. You need to take a look at this. And it happens that I'd been interested in something called the Freight Farms vertical grow house in a shipping container, right? Because again, looking at problems schools have, a lot of schools legitimately, we're in session, y'all out of season. How are we going to do that? And you can do certain things with season extension with high tunnels and greenhouses, but really we need to take a look at how we can meet those needs of schools. And so this freight farms thing came up. I purchased one. I have it on site. As a matter of fact, what we're seeing, this picture we're seeing now, is the seed station in that freight farms. So all of our seeds will start both for the freight farms and the greenhouse and some other projects we're doing right there in that freight farms. And the thing is, it's heated and cooled. You can grow year round. Lettuce gets hot. Lettuce says, "Boy, you're burning me up," right? So, can you grow lettuce in July in a greenhouse? Well, you probably can some ways, but it's pretty difficult. And so, greenhouse production of some products may be limited to 4 or 5 months out of the year. With this freight farms, and again, that's some romaine lettuce we have uh, transplanted already. It'll be ready about September 1st. The freight farm, since it's heated and cooled, we can do year-round production, right? That makes a big difference, right? Both from my perspective, what I'm doing, but also for schools, right? Um, it is limited. Quite frankly, we're not going to be, not trying to be funny, but we're not going to grow uh, probably squash or cantaloupes or watermelons in this freight farms thing. But any kind of lettuce that you want to name, we can do that. Up in the greenhouse, we also have some areas that we're going to be growing some herbs. And so it's a smaller production area. So I said, well, we need something of kind of higher value and not as large a production. So the greenhouse with float beds will do about 3,700 uh, heads of lettuce at one time. Now we won't, we'll rotate those week by weekly, but 3,700 in about rotations during the year. So we get about 10,000 or so, 11,000 heads of lettuce out of that production. The freight farms will do about 25,000 heads over the course of the year, right? And then we're doing one more shipping container, only we're doing hydroponics a little different there, and it'll do about 2,500 one time. So 6 times that is about 15. So fairly large capacity. And I was counting up today how many square foot it took, or how large an area all this is in. And we got some other freight or some other shipping containers there we're going to do some different things with. But I got all of this in a 40-foot by 200-foot space on my farm, right? So I don't need 100 acres. And part of the reason is that these shipping container things, my friend from Wolfe County is a retired Procter & Gamble engineer. He grew up in Wolfe County. He wants to give back to his community and figure out ways that small farmers with limited land use can participate in the, I'll call it the farm economy, but it's particularly in the farm to school stuff. And so part of what we're doing, that research is coming through him. Can we build something that's, economically feasible, right? Lori, keep me on time because I'll just keep talking. But if anybody has any questions throughout the thing too, please ask.
Yeah, we've got just a couple minutes left, so if it's a good time for questions if anybody has questions.
If there are any questions, just anybody that wants to. We're on about a 8-week cycle. So if you came to me and says, okay, I want to grow, I want some butterhead lettuce, right? And I need this amount of butterhead lettuce. From the time we put it in our seed trays until we harvest it from those shells in the freight farms is about 8 weeks. And that goes as well, not during the hot summer, but in the greenhouse, we'll put it in that seed station in about the same 8-week cycle, in any of those, on any of those projects. And Lori, please, anybody that wants to have my contact information, you're welcome to come visit. I know Amy, I see on here from Frankfurt. We're actually just over in Newcastle, so not very far at all. And Anna from Henry County and Tony Jackson from Trimble County are going to come out Friday, as a matter of fact, and sort of do a tour of what we're doing. We're not complete by a long shot. We're, as they say, you see those signs, under construction. We're still working on some stuff, but we're making a really good progress now.
David, I'll add one thing to that. One of the problems that UK Dining had with purchasing local salad greens was they couldn't wash out the aphids, which are little insects that feed on leaves.
Right.
So a system like this would exclude the aphids from having a part in any of in ever getting a foothold, right?
Yes, there's a combination of things. So when you're looking at lettuce or other produce as well, one of the folks today in that meeting brought up, we can't be having dirty stuff coming in, and by that they meant bugs on it, but also literally dirt on it, right?
Right.
And so we're growing in water, so there's no access to weeds, there's no access to dirt, and there's very, very limited. I won't say a bug will never be on there, like especially in the greenhouse, but it's a whole lot more controllable. And then the freight farms, there just won't be any pests in there at all. So it'll be clean, right? It will taste good. And, while we haven't done taste tests on our stuff yet, other folks that have grown using these systems, the taste is really, really good. And part of that is it's so fresh, right? So for Henry County Schools, if they said, okay, can you deliver Thursday? And we, harvested Wednesday afternoon, it's literally less than 24 hours old from harvest. And so that makes a big difference too. And it just stays so much cleaner and fresh.
Yeah. Most of our commercial lettuce supply in the US is coming from Southern California or Northern Arizona. Like 98% of our lettuce supply. So that's a long way away. If I
Yeah.
drove from Southern California to Kentucky, I wouldn't feel very fresh after that drive. So,
Well, it's going to take a little bit for all of us to kind of retrain our minds in terms of what we, what we're looking at and how we do things and stuff. But I feel pretty confident, not only my project, I'm certainly happy with that and excited about it, but there's a lot of other folks that are getting geared up to really ramp up the whole farm to school thing with not just lettuce, but other things as well. So I'm really encouraged. And of course, there's some money out there, the LFS and other monies out there available for purchase when it becomes an economical decision that, hey, I can't buy local because, the budget issues. Maybe some of that stuff is kind of easing up a little bit too. So